Did I ever tell you about the time I got into a near fatal car accident and couldn't be rescued for 5 hours? If you have trauma, you might as well monetize it, am I right? So let's talk about it. So the day of my accident, there was this really severe windstorm that swept through all of Midland, Virginia, which is where I was living at the time. I remember leaving physical therapy and it had looked like a monsoon had happened. Like there were trash cans like just rolling through the road. There were tree branches that had fallen down everywhere. There were police that were out whose sole mission was to remove tree branches and debris that had fallen in the road so people could like drive home. But the only thing that I was personally concerned about is that I was fucking hungry. Like, forget the freaking apocalypse that's currently happening. My ass needs to eat. Because I don't know if any of you are like this, but as a single person, I never had anything in my refrigerator. Everything that I ate either came from DoorDash or fast food on the way home. Considering neither of those things was in order, I was fucked. So without literally any options, I even checked gas stations, dude. Without any options, I just headed home. And I made it home completely safe. Of course, the electricity in my house was turned off. So what I ended up doing was just taking a nap. I was tired, I was bored, I was hungry, and so I just went to sleep. I remember waking up like 3 hours later to all of the electricity in my house turning back on. And my internal fat kid was immediately still hungry. I'm not one of those people that just forgets to eat, okay? It's all my ass ever thinks about. So I decided that I was gonna go and try to find like a gas station or hopefully a McDonald's that was still open even though it was so late at night. I remember going outside to check and see if the weather was manageable to drive in. Like, I'm from West Virginia. I'm used to back roads. I'm used to slippery roads. I'm used to storms. I'm used to it's nothing that I hadn't done a million times before. I'd driven in the rain. So even though the weather still wasn't optimal, I thought it was at least decent enough to drive in. I remember grabbing my phone. I remember leaving my house. And then I remember losing control of the car. All I remember is skidding off the side of the road and thinking in my mind, I can't recover the car from this. I don't remember what caused me to skid off the road. All I remember is it happening. And the thing is, I don't remember being scared. I remember just being like, I can't do anything. It was just this complete sense of powerlessness. I have no control right now. There was no course correcting it. There was no slamming on the brakes. Like, I knew in that moment that there was nothing that I could do to prevent what was about to happen. I'll tell you what I did do. I held my foot down on that brake as hard as I can, hands on the steering wheel, and I closed my motherfucking eyes. And it's funny because I know there's some people who talk about getting into a car accident and they see as they're flipping, they see like the change come down. I didn't see a damn thing, all right? My eyes were fucking shut. I remember transitioning from the road into the bumpiness of the grass. And then once I went airborne, it was lights out. That's the last thing I remember. Fun fact about me is I hate wearing seatbelts, okay? I know. I don't need to hear about it in the comments, okay? So, whenever I regain consciousness, I am now in the passenger seat, okay? Mind you, I am the driver of the vehicle, okay? I'm the only one in the vehicle, praise God. I wake up in the passenger seat, okay? And I'm like, did I just get into a car accident? The first thing I notice is my fucking leg. Listen, if you're squeamish, it's time to leave, okay? My leg is like soup, okay? I can feel bone fragments floating around in my leg. Imagine a bowl of soup filled with chunky, thick blood with bone fragments, and you're just mixing it around like this. That's what it feels like is happening inside of my thigh. Little bone pieces sticking up everywhere. It's foul, bro, and it smells. Okay, maybe it doesn't smell, but it was nasty, okay? Naturally, the first thing that I started to do was scream. And I scream, and I scream. So mind you, my entire car is busted out at this point. The front windshield is busted. All of the airbags have deployed. I didn't even know there were so many airbags in my car, but literally all of them deployed. So I sit there and I scream and I scream and I scream for help. And the worst part is that I can see people driving above me and they're just going right by, but none of them see me. And what has happened is I have skidded off the road and then fallen down this embankment so I can see above me, but people are driving on the road. They're not going to look down below and see that a vehicle has crashed down there. They're just going to keep their eyes on the road and keep driving. Like it's a 2-lane road with a big turn in it. So I have missed this turn and fallen down the hill while everyone else is continuing to obviously make that turn. And then they keep going without seeing me at all. I yell and I yell and I yell. And the only soul that hears me is this fucking dog who's like, I don't even know how far. He had to have been like a block away or something. But the dog continues to bark. No one else can hear me except for this fucking dog. So after an hour of screaming out the window to no avail, my thought is that I need to get back into the driver's seat so that way I can turn my headlights on to hopefully flag somebody down from the road and get them to see me. Because like I said, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, okay? It's pitch black. No one can see me off the road. I need to do something to light myself up. So I make the excruciating journey just into the next seat. I have to lift my bloody, chunky, soupy leg over the center console and then move the rest of myself over. And oh my God, just lifting it up, I could feel it was like half of my bone had slidden down beside the other half of it. So it broke off in all these chunks. And then because it didn't have the support, half of it was now sitting, so instead of being together, half of it is now down here. So every time I attempt to move my leg, I have this grinding sensation. Okay, so while my leg is grinding in its chunky soup mixture, as I lift it over, I finally make it back over into the driver's side. I go to turn on my headlights. I'm a fucking dumbass because if everything else is busted out, why do I think my headlights are gonna work, dude? Then I have the genius idea. My horn. I can honk the horn and get someone's attention. I go to try the horn. Naturally, since the airbag has deployed, the horn no longer works, which I guess isn't something you would think about unless you're in that situation. Like, of course, the horn isn't going to work if the airbag deploys, but why? Why can't it? Like, if you're in an emergency, that's like the only time you really do need your horn. So not only can I not turn on the lights, the horn doesn't work. I still have no way to get anyone's attention and let them know that I've been in this accident. And that's when it hits me, dude. My phone. I brought my phone with me. I have the Hey Siri feature. Hey Siri. And she's like, what can I do for you, bitch? I have that function on my phone. So I'm in the car. Hey Siri. Hey Siri. Hey Siri. And what do you know? That bitch doesn't fucking answer, okay? She wants to answer every time I try to talk to my friend Sherry. She wants to answer every time like I'm not actually talking to her. But as soon as I need that bitch, she's nowhere to be found. That bitch never did answer, okay? Fucking hate Siri. So at this point, it has been like 3 hours. Just going from the passenger side to the driver's side seat took me at least an hour and a half to do. When I finally make it into the driver's seat, after all of that exertion, I was feeling so defeated and I was just done. I felt like I was gonna be like one of those people on I Shouldn't Be Alive and have to crawl up that embankment onto the road, have to wave my hand to try to flag somebody down in order to be seen. And then I was like, dude, I can't walk. My leg is fucking shattered. My femur grinding against itself because I've broken the strongest bone in my fucking body. And I'm probably going to get ran over if I try to crawl up there onto the road. Like, what the fuck am I going to do now? That was my next plan, though. I didn't have any other options. So I opened the driver's side door, and that's the last thing I remember doing. Everything goes black again, and I pass out for the second time. I just want to stop here for a minute and say, like, I was never afraid that I was going to die. At no point was I afraid of dying there, but I was afraid of fucking suffering. And the thought of that getting any worse is what really motivated me to try to find a solution as fast as I can. In my next moment of recollection, I wake up because I'm hearing the crunching of what I think is gravel. I later come to realize it's the glass from all of the windows shattering, but I hear somebody walking, and the first thing that this person says to me is, "How did you get all the way up here?" And I was like, "Up? I fell. I came from up there." So it was a police officer. And the only reason he had even found me was because during my accident, whenever I skidded off the road and fell down that embankment, I ran into a telephone pole. And that's what kind of caused me to flip. And in flipping, I poured the telephone pole down with me, and we both fell down the embankment. So around 6 or 6:30 in the morning, people are starting to call because they don't have electricity to get ready to go to work. They dispatch the police to try to figure out what the issue is. And he comes from the lower neighborhood, probably where that fucking dog was, to try to figure out what happened, and just happened to stumble upon me and checking where the electricity was down at. So I only remember that very brief conversation with him. And then in my next moment, I must have passed back out again, because in my next moment of recollection, the ambulance is there and they're attempting to cut me out of the car, because even though I was able to open the door, my leg was so fractured that they had to rip open the side of the door to get me out without, messing up my leg even further. Once I get to the hospital, I figure out what they think happened as far as my leg breaking is that whenever I hit the telephone pole on impact, it tried to throw me out of the car because I wasn't wearing a seatbelt. However, because I sit so close to the steering wheel, when it tried to throw me out of the car, if this is my body and these are my legs, I went like this. My leg snaps on the steering wheel, and instead of continuing to go forward, my leg breaks and then throws me over here with a broken leg instead of throwing me out of the car completely, thus saving my life. Because I also had a head wound, whenever I went airborne, I hit my head prior to my leg snapping. So thank God I have no recollection of this happening. And just let me tell you something, the recovery was 5 million times worse than the accident itself. I would happily go through that accident 5 million times over than do a single day of that recovery. Because, dude, at the end of the day, I learned a very significant and crucial life lesson. Seatbelts are for pussies. Because honestly, if you haven't had your very own batch of thick bloody bone soup, are you even really living? Subscribe!